Good evening. I'm Cynthia Elliott, President of the Rochester Board of Education. We're here tonight to have a charter school public hearing for the University Preparatory Charter School for Young Men. Today is January 10th, 2023. The Education Law Subdivision 2857-1 and regulations of the Commissioner of Education, Section NYCRR, Section 119.4, require the board to conduct a public hearing within 30 days of receipt of notice of an application for a new or revised charter school. The Board of Education of the Rochester City School District is conducting this public hearing regarding a charter revision application. The purpose of this hearing is to gather community input to provide to the New York State Education Department regarding the application. University Preparatory Charter School for Young Men, located at 1290 Lake Avenue, Rochester, New York, 14613 in the Rochester City School District, is chartered to serve 450 students in grades 7 through 12 for the 2022-23 school year, and is currently under renewal consideration, seeking a 5-year renewal of the charter commencing August 1st, 2023, with an expansion to serve 525 students in grades 6 through 12. The school requests to move from its current location within the Rochester City School District to 3000 East Ridge Road, Arundicourt, New York, 14622, in the East Arundicourt Central School District to accommodate the growing program offerings. The school still prioritizes serving the students of the Rochester City School District. Is there anyone here to speak on behalf of this public hearing? Hearing none, this public hearing is closed.
Welcome to the CIGR Committee of the Whole meeting. At this time, it's 5:47, and I would like to call this meeting to order. Can I get a motion to approve the CIGR
Second.
committee meeting agenda? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And Adams, let me just apologize, because I know I told you all that wait until I make the motion, so I apologize for that. I'm bringing my old rule.
We're ready today. Okay. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to Charisma to go to our speakers.
Good evening. Tonight we have two speakers who are in person. The first speaker will be Ms. Rebecca Heatherton, who is a parent speaking on SOC priorities. Ms. Heatherton, you have 3 minutes whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Rebecca Hetherington, and I'm the mom of 3 boys in the Rochester City School District. I'm also proud to say that I'm part of the Parent Leadership Advisory Council and part of the leadership team of the district-wide parent group, which 3 years ago this month began the work of creating a community structure for parents that want to be a part of supporting every student across the district. The community building continues with 550 parents in the general membership and 14 parents actively engaged on the leadership team. We're focused on building a community of parents to see the connection between being a part of the decision-making process and the short and long-term effects that it produces for our children. And it's time to focus on that connection. Leaving parents and students out of updating a process like student placement and then advertising that it's 100% online only without encouraging help and support for the best placement of each child fails students and parents. As a parent, you don't know what you don't know. Students are then placed incorrectly because of a lottery system that makes no sense, and parents, students, and teachers may know a student is placed incorrectly, but then are met with a transfer process that also gets updated without parent or student voice. And that transfer process is so broken that students only have access to change schools when a catastrophic incidences that have already happened at a school or at home. Students are stuck, and first they get kicked out of classes, and then in-school suspension, and then out of school into the streets that welcome them. And if you can't see the connections between the processes of leaving parents and students out of decision-making when it comes to procedures in the district and what these things aren't, and what happened last week at Franklin, then I don't know what any of us are doing here. Stop pretending like these things aren't connected and stop normalizing it as if this is something any of our scholars have to live with or that any of our children have to be used to or for a moment think that could ever get used to it. This is not normal. Do not act like it is. Instead, include parents and students in decisions before decisions are made where they have belonged all along. The Student Leadership Congress has a beautiful presentation tonight, and as a Black parent, I wanted to take this opportunity to celebrate them. As in all ways, as we parents first and foremost support our students, the SLC presentation later this meeting is quite incredible, and their support of creating equity between schools, student government and leadership in all high schools, team building and activities throughout the year, de-escalation rooms and mediation rooms, creating community within our schools are all really special goals and aspirations that we would love the opportunity to partner with you to achieve. And thank you for the opportunity to share.
Thank you, Ms. Heatherton. The next speaker is Ms. Catherine Baruth. She is also a parent speaking on the SOC priorities. When you're ready, you have 3 minutes.
Unlike Rebecca, I need my old lady glasses. Good evening, commissioners. My name is Catherine Baroth. I'm a district parent. I'm also part of the PLAC leadership team. I am also the vice president of the Special Education Parent Advisory Council. The name of this committee is Community and Intergovernmental Relations. On today's agenda, you are discussing the priorities of the Student Leadership Council, and I too would like to uplift their presentation. It's excellent. And setting your legislative priorities. I'm so glad that you are listening to and valuing the student voice and working with other elected officials. I might ask, who's missing? Who's missing from this community? This year, parents have systematically been shut out of conversations surrounding decisions that affect them and their scholars. A huge change to the school transfer process was made earlier this year. Consequently, parents no longer come to central office to walk through the process. They have to do it through their home school, the very location they are often desperate to leave. In such cases, it feels much safer for them to come to central office, what they used to do. However, that door closed. No parents were brought into the review of changes to a process that so directly impacts them. Similarly, the School of Choice program was rolled out without parent input. Now parents and caregivers must do everything online. What happens when they have questions? What happens when they are not computer literate? And I would like to raise up a grandfather responsible for 11 scholars in this district, several of whom need to pick a new school. He doesn't know how to use a computer. Where's he going to go? This new process is not clear to parents and does not address children who are in programs in which they could readily remain, such as pre-K to K, or in the case of schools with a lower and an upper house. Had parents been involved in the decision-making process, perhaps it would be clear. Are we to understand that even those families need to enter the lottery? The process does not say. Again, another issue directly impacting families left major stakeholders out of the conversation. The leaders of the district-wide parent groups, PLAC, CPAC, and BEC, were not consulted or contacted when the district decided to place RPD outside of the 5 high schools as a result of the horrific events at Franklin last week. Did the district speak to parent leaders at Franklin? I don't know, but I can guess. Parents and families are part of the RCSD community. Thank you so much for including the students. The district likes to talk about how they want more parents involved, yet you close the doors. You close the doors to central office. Reasons to engage with central office for transfers and placement are gone. Parents get frustrated. Parents disengage. We need to feel welcomed and valued no matter where we are, school or here at central office. Restarting open conversations with RCSD families, such as coffee with the superintendent once a month, as we had in years past, would go a long way to bridging that gap. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Commissioner Adams. That is all the speakers.
I would like to get a motion to approve the minutes from the November 3rd, 2022 CIGR committee meeting.
So moved.
Oh, second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So next up, I'm going to invite the SLC up here. I would like to extend a thanks to the SLC from the board and from the superintendent for accepting our offer to come and present to the community your presentation of student engagement ideals and activities. You already did a good job at the Community and Family Engagement Forum back in November, and so I expect you to do the same. Welcome.
Good evening, board and families, and for all who are watching us tonight. My name is David Beyond. I'm an 11th grader at Rochester Early College International High School. I'm also the president of the Student Leadership Congress. I would just like to quickly thank everyone who was with us in the decision-making process to get us here today, and to the amazing teachers and mentors who helped with the Student Leadership Congress. In helping elevate the voice of the students of the City of Rochester, in our work with students in grades 3 through 12, we compiled all their ideas and divided them into 6 categories that will connect with our goal of student engagement. Community connections and college careers are the first 2 that I will be presenting. Then after, I will turn it over to my team members, Maeve Delahanty and Maya Adams, and our Vice President, Shazi Mohammed, who is currently under the weather, but made the impossible possible with this project, and we couldn't do without her. And without further ado, let's turn over to Maeve Delahanty for our opening.
Good evening. My name is Maeve Delahanty, and I am a junior at World of Inquiry 58. Student Leadership Congress recently surveyed students throughout the district looking for answers to the question, what events and activities get kids excited and engaged with school? We had the unique opportunity to have open conversations with students from grades 3 through 12 all across the district, discussing what we value in our classrooms and schools. As Student Leadership Congress, we feel that it's not our job to speak for the students of the district, but amplify the voices of our peers and advocate for equity and opportunities within all of our schools. Students recognize great programs and activities already available within the district, such as online courses, CTE programs, various clubs, and athletic opportunities. But they pointed out that not all schools have access to the same resources that help to foster a positive school climate. We have witnessed disengagement from our peers and seen firsthand the climbing absences in our classrooms. Since the pandemic, our lives have transformed. No longer can we turn to the same learning models and methods, expecting different results. Now is the time to implement new ideas and programs to help change school culture district-wide. In order to increase academic success, teachers must raise expectations for students, lifting them up rather than keeping them down. There are great students and teachers at all of our schools. In order to encourage student success, we must create equitable opportunities in student leadership, arts, and academics. The Student Leadership Congress believes that schools are the foundation of our community. Today we want to share with you student-generated ideas on how to create positive school culture, authentic relationships between educators and students, and more student engagement at every level, which will lead to academic success for all. Thank you, and now I'll turn it back over to David.
Before I get started, I would just like to say that we do have, after each slide, we will have a chance to, for you guys to ask questions and also state what you guys want to say. So, all right. Community connections. Community is a massive part of the education ecosphere. As a community, supporting our students reaps benefits emotionally and physically. Whether it's the students being involved or the community involved in schools, it takes a village, or community in this case, to support our students and get them to that next step. And here's a couple of ideas on how the community can support our students. 1, internships and job shadowing. Exposing our scholars at an earlier age to possible jobs and giving them the opportunity and insight to see how their future careers can play out is a huge victory for us in supporting their goals and allowing students to become who they want to be. Internships provide that practical work experience for students and allows them to see the world they want to be in and give them the choice they deserve. Job shadowing and internships allow our students to see possibilities beyond college, and this begins at a younger age. We have to show that thinking about college and careers doesn't have to just begin in high school, but in between nap times and finger painting. 2, community members. In seeing the world, having people in the community who have started careers or have started their professional journey allows students to see the people in their community who achieved big things and allows relationships to be fostered. If it's internships, clubs inspired by a community member, or just engaged students, allows them to gain insight into the potential they can grow in. 3, authentic senior projects. In creating achieving students, having projects dedicated to a student's career interest or passion in their lives is a door to many possibilities. For students, it's giving that front door into their career or life choice. School Without Walls does a great job at this, at having authentic connections with mentors and students by giving them a senior project, where they shadow businesses, entrepreneurs, or members of the community. This is all a student's choice, and students ultimately get to choose. In regards to engagement, engaging our students with internships or projects not only gets them involved throughout the year, but it drives motivation and innovation in our community. Students are immersed in what they want to do, and students are interested in what they want to work towards. Investing in our children at a younger age and providing them with the choice to explore careers provides significant growth and clarity, which can make decision making for them when they're older much easier. Actually, I'll just go back. Does anyone have any questions or statements they would like to make about the first slide? No.
I love what you all are presenting thus far, and I love that you are targeting the earlier grade levels, not just waiting until high school, because I think that's where a lot of decisions get made. We
Right.
try to do it at high school, and at that point, we've missed so many buckets. So even when you mentioned School Without Walls, I remember some students helping me with campaigning and things of that nature. So you are so spot on, and I'm going to be quiet because you guys are providing great feedback.
All right,
Thank you.
Thank you. And here are some examples of what I did during my time in high school and kind of when I was out and about. So you'll see the first three pictures kind of with the arrows on the left side. That's when I got to go to a program called Experiencing Civic Life at the U of R. I did that for 2 years back to back over summer. And it was a 2-week program where I got to experience like what it was like to be on a college campus and actually learn with professors. And I got to sit in a college lecture dorm, and I got to live in a dorm with my friends, and it was so cool. And the rest of the pictures with the butterflies and that guy holding a water canister, that's when I got to write a research paper for food hunger and how education and hunger really relate together in India. And I got a Cornell for that. So that was really cool. I got to go to Cornell for that, and I got to be top 55 in the state, and that was really awesome. And I got to meet so many people. I got to meet Nobel Prize winners, and I think that immersiveness and that exposure really helped me realize how much doors are open for me, and that was just so cool. And I did it all in like 2 years, so that was really cool. All right, and our next category is college and careers. College can be very intimidating for students, so can going into a career or discovering more of life. But our schools can help students feel more confident on how these difficult decisions. Here are some ways how. 1, field trips to colleges, organizing college visits over the breaks and summer camps. To give our students an advantage is not always some cutting-edge technology. In this case, it's to support endeavors to host field trips to colleges, whether it's HBCUs or the Ivy League. Showing while telling is a big step in helping students find what is going to best fit for them, and to show that nothing is impossible, even Harvard. 2, partnerships with local colleges, universities, and businesses. Partnering with local colleges and universities provide realistic goals that students can work towards. It can be in the form of dual enrollment or days where the college or university hosts events for students and families to participate in. Connecting college and school is a great tool to getting students elevated into what's set out for them. Remember, all of this starts young. We aren't just talking college here. Partnering with local businesses to give students every option there is and to find the best career option for them is the goal. We want to open doors, not close them, so accessibility is the key. 3, more college fairs and representatives coming to talk with students. Students also expressed how schools need more college fairs and representatives coming to their schools to talk about the specific schools, academics, sports, and extracurriculars. Reps from those schools can also talk about certain financial aid packages that they offer and helping students and families affirm the best option that's best for them. The goal is to evaluate where help is needed and then give support to then elevate our students to the level we know they can be and engage them in careers in college so they can be prepared for life. Setting students up for success and stability post-graduation, regardless of whether they attend college, to show all levels of universities to bring exposure to advanced learning opportunities so that we as educators create a path where graduation is a stepping stone and not their final destination. And now I'll pass it over, or if any questions?
Yeah, what's been your experience, and all three of you, if you don't mind, can respond. What's been your experience with your interaction with counselors?
I would say that, especially over the past 3 years I've been in high school now, a lot of counselors are overwhelmed with students, and they can't always give you the help they might need because, well, they have 40 other students they have to cater to. So it's more of an accessibility problem for me because I only had one counselor, and trying to get,
Let me just add, you only had one counselor in your tenure here at the district, or one counselor in your grade now?
Recently, this past year, we actually got much more counselors and much more helps. But before then, especially during COVID, it was very much of a struggle. So I will What do you guys think?
For me, my counselor is actually very helpful. I'm always trying to push myself to do extracurriculars, and she's helped me out a lot with that. But I do know that, like, whenever I go and try and see her, I normally have to schedule a time because she's always busy when I just pop in. But my school does a really good job at we have counselors, I think it's like A through E, and then just divided by last names, and I think there's 4 or 5 of them. And then freshman academy, so all of the freshmen have 2 counselors that are divided. So counselors for me are readily available.
At 58, there's been a lot of recent turnover in counselors, and we have 1 counselor per 2 grades, like overall. And I'm so blessed to have a lot of resources at home, but I think that in order to get help at school from your counselors, at least at 58, you have to seek it out. A lot of kids can fly under the radar, but I'm building a good relationship, but I have to understand that I have to go seek it out, you know?
So I guess what I would just sort of have discussion around is if that's an issue that our counselors are overworked, and perhaps we do need to get additional counselors. But I think I'm hearing you all also talk about the other partnerships, because what you're asking for is going to need more than just counselors. It's going to need some outside resources, and so other partnerships like the colleges and universities. And so I think that what I would love to see, and I don't know if it's in here, but if you can help us to design a complete packet of what you are talking about, how that would work. So that if you give us a packet, and I'm going to speak on behalf of Dr. Palooza right now, that's something that we can take and try to operationalize it, right? So that, if you're at 58 and one's at East, and where are you at, Daniel? Yeah, so if we can have that kind of a packet throughout all the schools, and some of you talked about even doing it early. I know my niece has a daughter, and she's saying to me already, who's 5 years old, that her niece is interested in science, right? So, and she's 5 and getting ready to come into our district, and so if some way you could package that for us and help us to understand what that looks like, so that we can help you all. Now, I have an idea about it, basically some of the things that you're saying, but we need to hear it from you because you're the ones that are representing our district. So, thank you.
Thank you.
We are working on a full-length report that we're also going to present as well later on. So I guess that will just kind of answer your question. But
Thank you.
And I'll pass it on to Maya.
One of the many topics that was brought up when speaking to students throughout the district was policy changes. Many students felt that there were a lack of resources and programs available. For example, students at SOTA are given more chances at practicing the arts, but there aren't nearly as many sports offered there as there are at Edison. Creating equity between schools allows students to gain a sense of fairness and be exposed to equal opportunities. Students also felt that their selection of courses should be expanded, and there should be more CTE courses, semester classes, electives, virtual classes, practical courses, and more. This will increase student engagement by promoting students to develop useful skills, take more rigorous courses, and increases student interest. Here you can see multiple images of CTE programs and specialized electives at East. These courses can help to prepare students who don't want to go to college for what comes after high school. Many of these courses are only offered at East, similar to how only specific courses are offered at SOTA, for example. While Edison has CTEs, just like East, the courses are very different. In these images, you can see students from East's culinary CTE program getting real experience serving food and working a catered event. Students in East Teaching and Learning Institute constantly get the chance to help younger students around the RCSD. These students are clearly engaged, interested, and passionate about what they are learning about. Our goal is to have courses like these implemented into schools all throughout the district. Are there any questions?
So would you argue the point that perhaps East is one of those schools that we can, you know, as an example for other schools in the district? Does East have the kind of opportunities, what you all are talking about now?
Yeah, I think East does. That's why all these pictures actually are from East. But I do also think like Soda has those art classes, which you can't find all of those at other schools. So it's just all schools need to have offering.
Equitable resources.
Yeah.
I had a question, because I've heard in other conversations, for example, we have CTE in certain schools or what have you. And even in the schools that we do provide CTE offerings, in some cases, they're not necessarily what students are interested in. And I'm hearing that they'd like to see, that you all would like to see a more diverse offering. Can you provide a few examples this evening of alternatives or other CTE offerings you'd like to see?
So I know Edison used to have a braiding CTE, or maybe not braiding, but just cosmetology, yeah. And I've heard a lot of students say that they wish that would be brought back. I also know like East, I think, is more focused on, well, East has more like culinary. We have culinary, TLI, which is Teaching and Learning Institute, biomed, optics, vision care. And I think Edison has more
Automotive and tech.
yeah, more technical classes. So I don't know what students would.
Yeah, that would be something that I would love to hear, even if it's not tonight, that as we progress and continue to engage, getting an understanding of what some additional offerings might look like and that students are interested in. Thank you.
Sorry, you're good. Because we do like, I think that most students are looking for like more of a comprehensive high school experience. Like if they're going to Northeast, it's a college prep school, you know, that there's also CTE or arts, you know. And I think that's something to less do with like the schools, but just being so like more like a lottery system, and you know, kids being in a school that they may not, like for example, a student might like the arts, but they're in Edison, you know. A student might like CTE, but they're in school of the arts, you know, and vice versa. So.
Any other questions?
Yes. So my understanding of some of the schools around the district is they have specialties and, you know, special areas like Soda, you know, it's like gifted of the arts, students who are in the arts. And again, maybe this is a discussion for, you know, the superintendent and us board members going forward. In the suburbs, you know, kids go to school, a certain school for half a day, and then the other half a day, they go to BOCES, for example, for CTE. And again, it could be a conversation for the board, I'm sure it's going to be, is it possible for those students, let's use Soda, for example, who are gifted in the arts, go to that school for half the day, and then be able to transfer to a program that might be at Edison, for example, that might involve some form of career and technical education. So I guess that's something we have to discuss. What do you think about that?
I think that sounds great because it would allow students to get the best of both schools, while also, you know, not having to worry about BOCES is expensive. I'm sorry. So yeah, I think that sounds great as a proposal, I guess. Yeah.
And let me just take a minute not to question you. Commissioner Adams, I apologize because I'm thinking this is my meeting, but it's your meeting, so I'm going to start looking to you for you to give us direction. I apologize for that because you were the chair of this meeting, I just took it over. So my apologies. So please direct your, if you have any questions, to the chairperson. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions?
So I did have one question. Both of y'all had talked about, I think you participated in college, staying on the campus for 2 weeks, 2 years in a row. There's like just a limited amount of folks that get to participate in that. I'd like to see you advocate for expanding that partnership, man, so other folks can get thirsty and hungry for college, like I know you three are. So I just would like to recommend that you, next time you come back here, because you're coming back, I invite y'all to come back. I'm telling you right now, have that as one of the advocacies.
Commissioner Adams, respectfully, sir, we might be fighting for them. I want them to.
All right.
We're just getting ourselves together.
Yeah.
I was just gonna touch on a couple of the questions, and I think it's less about like the programs, like in the specialized programs we have at our school, but more creating plans for our students, like after high school, because I think a lot of our students right now are graduating without a clear plan on how to, it doesn't have to be college, but we want them to be able to establish, a career and a path for themselves, in their community and for themselves. And I don't think, like, when you brought up, I thought it was a really good idea, offering like connections with Edison and CTE programs, but we want to make sure they're specific and students know about them, because then they'll have more idea of the options out there. So, thank you, sorry.
So what I hear you all saying is from inception in the RCSD, you would like to see the student experience created in a way that's tangible, where the student has an actual pathway from K through 12, where there's intentionality around building out their life plan and graduation plan, be it going to career college or just life and employment, whatever that is, you'd like to see us be more intentional around that and provide equity around those resources. Okay.
Yeah, and just what you said, Mr. Adams, about how that program isn't accessible to everyone. The thing is, that summer program was hosted at U of R, and most college, like summer programs, you have to pay for them, and they don't offer financial aid, like at all. But that program, it was started by a professor at the U of R, and she wanted to be accessible to only RCSD students. So it was accessible to RCSD students. It was for free. We had kids from East coming, early college, a couple other kids, and it was just a really cool program. And actually, Miss Malloy, your daughter, Chloe, she did that program. I remember we did it virtually together, and it was a great program. Mr. Patterson, which you said about if kids can be just bused to, where they can have accessible programs. At our school, early college, obviously kids take the high school portion, and then they get bused to MCC, and then they get bused to, MCC's technical campus, and maybe we can, if we expand our dual enrollment operations in the city, then we can see like kids, doing the CTE, doing the arts, and actually getting college credit for it too as well.
The follow-up question, I would like to know, are we doing a good job publicizing or advertising the CTE
No,
court?
not at all.
What do you think we can do better to help us
I know
do a better
that-
job at getting those
Yeah.
skills out there?
I think that it's kind of sad to say, but we are kind of competing with charter schools big time. And I think that the best option is to really cater to parents who are, wondering, how is, because a lot of, for example, my mom, growing up, English wasn't her first language. So a lot of times I remember I would do all the field trip forms, I would do everything, and there wasn't much leniency or much flexibility. And I was the one who chose to go to my high school. She didn't really have much option in that. So catering to parents while also catering to students and kind of advertising in all aspects. Also, what you said, one of the PLAC team members said about how not everyone's like good with technology. People still like to have papers in their hands, and just being accessible to everyone. I think that's probably the best way to can advertise our families.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, any other questions? All right, I'll pass it back over to Maeve.
See if I get it. Creating community within schools. We want our classes to feel connected to each other. When students feel connected to something larger than themselves, it encourages participation in all aspects of the school. Creating community within schools is vital to fostering school culture. One thing students would like to see is student government and leadership in all high schools. When students feel heard, they are more likely to engage in school. As community members, the end goal is to encourage and support young people to create, to critically think. We want our students excited about connecting with and serving their community. Another thing students suggested was team building activities throughout the year. Whether it's culture clubs that celebrate school heritage, school dinners, service projects, or student-led tutoring for younger students, team building activities can help build connections and bonds within student body. Whether, making school not necessarily a destination to come and leave, or more of a family. And then lastly, a lot of students, it was really impressive, some of the kids we talked to. They had clear-cut ideas of what they wanted to see, and they provide a lot of specificity, including de-escalation or meditation rooms. So these would be rooms that would provide opportunities for reconciliation, solving the root of the problem after students experience high-intensity situation. Whether it's fight or altercations, we want to recenter students' mindsets to get back in the classroom and engage learning. Now, the million-dollar question is, how is creating community going to encourage student learning? And we agreed that establishing positive relationships between students and teachers helps to create a support network for all of the school members. When students feel valued and safe at schools, they are more likely to engage in classes and contribute to the school community. Here we have examples within the RCSD of students connecting with each other. One of the most dynamic ways to foster connections within student body is by breaking bread with each other. Whether it's members of the district or even teachers and students, sitting down, making food and eating together is a way to have real conversations and create a family atmosphere within our schools. And other programs such as Rock to Change have offered high school students in the district a platform to speak out on issues of equity and race within our county. So by providing more opportunities that allow students to, provide input, it creates an environment that encourages student success. Now I will turn it back over to Maya. Thank you. Or any questions first? No? All right.
Nope.
Oh, yes.
Go ahead, Commissioner Patterson.
You gotta respect the chair.
And maybe you might now know the answer to this question, but is any one of the three of you familiar with either community schools or neighborhood schools? And do you think it would help with this creating community within schools you're discussing?
I think that, community schools, unfortunately, they might draw some inequities because not all of our neighborhoods have the same level of safety or, the same socioeconomic levels. So students who have to walk in more dangerous areas of the city, might face challenges that students in other neighborhoods may not. I don't know if that answers your question. I think every student, despite what school they go to, should feel like they have a support network where they are.
Thank you.
Back to Maya.
The classroom environment and teaching techniques have a big impact on learning. Students stated that one of the main things they wanted to see more of was teacher flexibility. I have seen firsthand students stop showing up to class because they fall behind and then feel as though there is no chance for them to catch back up due to certain teachers' strict late work policies. We would like to see more alternative methods for students to catch back up on missing work, such as Saturday school, after-school tutoring, and test corrections. Another thing that students wanted to put emphasis on is making classes more engaging. A lot of students are hands-on learners and can sometimes struggle to grasp topics without physical representation. Diverse staff was also constantly brought up, which has been a long-lasting problem in our district. Our student body is made up of roughly 90% students of color, while our teachers of color only make up 25 to 30%. Students have said that they feel more motivated by seeing educators who reflect them. It is vital that we show the students in the RCSD that people who look like them can succeed. Here you can see representation of diverse staff as well as students being constantly engaged in class. You can also see students working collaboratively to solve problems, as well as students taking the risk to work problems out in front of the class. It takes a lot of courage for some students to get in front of a large group of people and risk being incorrect, but it teaches the students that mistakes are opportunities to learn and grow. When I think of a productive class, I think of raised hands, questions being asked, and students being interested in what they're taught. There are many different teaching styles, and when students are exposed to multiple, it allows them to challenge their thinking and stretch their minds. Is there any questions? All right, I'll pass it back to Maeve.
Our last topic is extracurricular activities. This is a topic that's especially important to me because this is where I find joy in going to school. For many students, the school day is the main course and the sustenance, but sports and extracurriculars are the dessert and why they really want to be there. Especially at World of Inquiry, some of the struggles with athletics is that we are at so many schools that some students won't even bother joining a sport because we're at Edison, East, Franklin, Soda, all for different sports, which, can divide the student body even. And when we establish distinct partnerships between schools for athletics, we can help create equitable sports opportunities and partnerships. The RCSD has so many talented athletes, so let's turn our district's athletic programs into forces to be reckoned with. Another way that we can provide equity in our extracurricular programs is by instituting academic competitions in more schools. While there is Math League, Model UN, and Spelling Bees at some schools, it's not offered widely across the district. And these academic competitions and opportunities help open students in our district's perspective to, how students in the suburbs or students in other schools are learning and challenges them, to writing and critically thinking. Lastly, students wanted to see more clubs based on student interest, such as robotics clubs or esports. When we support student interest, it helps students connect outside of athletics and make them feel valued. Here are pictures of different programs and extracurriculars all across the district. Another unique opportunity we have in our district is we can create partnerships between elementary students and high school athletes, where students learn how to lead, and through that learn important community skills and team bonding, which is important. Sports, I think we have all seen, provide a lot of pride for all of our students and our community, and it creates a positive atmosphere in our school hallways. There are direct benefits of athletics and extracurriculars. It gives students purpose, instills work ethics, and helps with students' mental and physical health. While it may be undervalued by some, extracurriculars are part of the reason that many students show up to school every day. Now I'll turn it back to David, or first, any questions? Yes.
Thank you, Maeve. I have to agree, extracurriculars really are the carrot for so many of our students. And I had the pleasure actually this weekend of seeing my daughter at Rock City Robotics, and she goes to East, but is able to participate at Edison in that program. And I know the XCats from Wilson are also there. And so many of our clubs, unfortunately, they really hinge on whether or not parents can get their kids there, or if you know neighbors or friends who can transport your kids. I know I depend on a family friend to get her there or to and from there. And we're really blessed as a family to have those options. But we want to see more kids being able to take advantage of that and having that access. And so many kids have barriers to that access. And what can we do to get that back into all of our schools so that there is that equitable access? So thank you for bringing this to everyone's attention.
Thank you. Any other questions?
No. Is there any, we got one, Commissioner Patterson?
Yes, sir.
We got a couple, but we're deferring.
Okay. Yeah.
Sleeping down there. It's funny ironic, I should say, you mentioned esports. I just came back from Las Vegas at a major conference for esports. And I'm bringing back information for not only our board, but for the superintendent. He and I have discussed I have a general knowledge of esports and how we can incorporate that into English, math, and science. But I think it would be very important for not only the community, but our board and the superintendent to hear directly from you how you think, either one of the three of you, think that esports can help us in increasing the reading levels, for example, for our students, if you do know any one of those areas of specialty.
Well, I remember over COVID
curriculum.
coming back to school, and there'd be kids like, "Oh, that's so and so," and I was like, "How do you know them?" It's like Fortnite, and it actually, I think it connects a lot of students and kind of has created a circle. And there are ways to implement, math and then reading into esports to kind of once again make students have the relevant or make learning feel more relevant to them. I don't know, David and Maya, you want to touch on that?
So, I think games have a lot of potential in learning. I remember in 6th, 7th grade, we were doing Prodigy. I don't know if you guys know that. It's a math game. It's really cool. And when I was a kid, we did Lexia. I was in ESL classes and they're teaching me English, and it was really cool. But I think actual video games and actual esports, just what May said about connecting students with those barriers, and then having, I don't know, but that is a good question. How can we increase literacy rates with video games? And I think there is some, possibilities out there, but just one step, I think the first step is just, like what May said, just connecting students, and breaking down those barriers and getting together.
So I have a nephew. He is part of, what's this generation? Gen Alpha.
What's the generation?
Gen Alpha.
After Z.
Yeah, after Z.
They just circle back.
Yeah. Yeah, so he grew up around a lot of technology and devices. But right now, I know he's one of the smartest kids in his class. And not to say what he learned was totally from technology, but I know he was he practices his math on YouTube. He learns a lot from the games. I think it helps him have a better understanding of, I don't know, just how things work. I do definitely think all learning should not be done digital, but I do know that's helped him a lot. So, yeah.
Thank you.
So,
Yeah.
President Elliott.
Thank you. I just want to thank you all. I know that Commissioner Adams is going to do it too. But I see the press out there. This won't get covered. They're here for what happened at Franklin. And that's just unfortunate, because there are great things that are occurring in our school district, but what gets media attention is that other stuff. And whether it gets media attention or not, I don't really care anymore. But know that we respect what you're doing, that you are doing great work on behalf of representing our students, and we're going to get this done. We're going to do it, along with the superintendent. We're going to, begin to operationalize some of the things that you've asked us to do. So just thank you so very much for that. It's been a pleasure listening to this, and we've got, I used to be somewhat concerned about the future. I really am not anymore. So thank you for that. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, what?
We still have one more presentation slide to go through.
Okay.
Oh, one more slide. Okay.
It's just my closing. Don't worry, guys.
So should I take it back what I said and just say it over?
We'll say it back for a couple more seconds. All right. This is the end. So the Student Leadership Congress knows that these items shared represent opportunities in our schools that will engage students, which will lead to improvements in the following areas: attendance, engagement, academic outcomes, and student health. We'd like to continue working on this project with the Board of Education and the Superintendent's Administration. Our sincere expectation is that these programs and activities will be implemented in all schools. The SLC believes strongly in equity and equitable access to all students, and reaffirms that thought in this presentation. Thank you, board, families, and staff, and to all those at home or here tonight. On behalf of the SLC, students of the Rochester City School District, we see you, we hear you, and we're here to support you all. Thank you. And that's
Thank you.
So you started off that saying that this was the end, and I'm going to contradict you. I think this is the beginning. You did a fantastic job, and you had a good support staff, and I have to give a shout out to Mr. Jordan, because he has played a major part in being supportive to you, and I know he transitioned, but yet he's still here. So that's big ups to you, and don't try to delay coming back here. We're going to reschedule another date really soon. All right.
Thank you.
Are they a part of the legislative agenda?
Yes, they are.
Yeah.
I'm going to turn my microphone on. And can I get a motion to approve the minutes from the November 3rd, 2020?
Did we already do it?
I already
We did
did that? All right,
Yeah.
so we're going to move on to the legislative priorities. Let me put that up on the board here. Our legislative breakfast is Saturday, February 11th. And we have up there on the screen our legislative priorities. I'm not going to read them verbatim, but I am going to come down the list. The top one is the foundation aid. Maintaining the commitment to the foundation aid phase in and hold school districts harmless from pandemic-related reductions and expense-based funding. I know that the Monroe County School Board Association, this is one of the issues, their priority, they will be addressing at their legislative breakfast the week before this, which is February 4th. Another one is the American Rescue Plan dollars. Push come to shove, we need to make sure that we can try to spend this money, man. We don't want to send nothing back. Who can afford that? The charter schools is another priority we want to talk about. There's a lot of issues with that. We want to definitely stop that from the steamrolling down the hill, moving out of the city. We want to stop all of that type of stuff. So then we have CTE is one of the priorities. Pre-K funding. The pre-K has been working. We've got one of the best in the country, but the funding has not changed, and the cost of just functioning has really increased. So we need to look at increasing funding accordingly with the pre-K. We can't just let it start deteriorating. That also was mentioned at the Monroe County School Board Association's meeting the other day that I attended. They're going to be bringing that up as well. Social emotional health services. That's really a big issue in this district that we're going to be addressing. ELL, English language learners, PDs, and staff shortage, specifically teacher shortage they have on here. I didn't want to, transportation is another issue. Special education and positive school climate. Now, I didn't want to go through trying to read and go through every little thing there. because we need to I want to open the floor up for a discussion from the commissioners. And I see Commissioner Powell had her hand up first.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Under the heading of CTE, I note that there's support for increasing the formula for CTE students. But another part of the conversation at NYSBA Big Five is to allow funding for CTE for ninth graders, and that isn't in the CTE paragraph. It seems like that'd be just adding a phrase or a sentence. Oh, I beg your pardon. I just needed to look at the next page. Sorry. Thank you.
Okay. Any other discussion?
Other than, I support it, I did read it, and I'm in support of the legislative agenda, and no questions for me, really.
So before I move on, I'm going to give the floor to Commissioner Simmons.
Thank you, Commissioner Adams. Yeah, the agenda looks really healthy to me. It aligns well with all of the things that we see going on across the nation, the conversations that need to be happening. Of course, as I read it, I start to compartmentalize it and specify it to the RCSD when I'm looking at it. So, you know, when I look at positive school climate, of course, top of mind are recent events that have taken place that we really need to wrap our mind around and figure out how we can push that. And so I'm just kind of, I'm thinking of this in the context of the RCSD right now, and I'll give some remarks in a moment.
Commissioner Malloy.
I just wanted to say I don't have any questions at this time. It looks like a very robust agenda, and I support it in full. So thank you.
And I would like to say to the commissioners that we need to focus in on these priorities and be willing to go all in on advocacy. We got to go all in on pushing our legislators, you know, to give us support where we really need it.
So I'm wondering, Commissioner Adams, after the legislative breakfast, if it would be appropriate for us to develop some kind of advocacy strategy. You know, if we would, you know, make calls or we'd go to, you know, people's offices and talk more about it. I think there's also an advocacy day sometime in February, but that may be something for us to consider for another agenda to look at a strategy of how we're going to do that.
Yeah, I support the commissioners, if you're able, to go to Albany. And they have trips to Albany coming up before the legislative breakfast. I think January 25th, maybe that might be for Daniel Proulx. I'm not sure. But there's a couple days before our legislative breakfast. Okay. But even after the legislative breakfast, we need to be in their face. We need to keep reminding them, man. That's probably what most of us did before we got up here on the board. We was going there advocating. We need to continue that and support the students. Make sure that we get them students to go with us.
I'm excited to see the charter school piece built out a little more. It's a lot more in your face. It's talking about some of the practices. So I'm certainly for parents having choices to where their students and their children are educated. That's not my place to tell someone where their child should go. But as far as practices that do have a false or negative ramification, should I say, as far as like placing students back into their district when they're not fitting your particular model, we don't have the option to do that, nor should we be doing that. And so I don't think it's a fair practice that some school or some schools are able to do that. So I'm glad to see that there are efforts to kind of stop that bleed the way that's happening, because it is causing a hemorrhage on our finances.
Yeah, they not just taking our students, they taking our teachers, you know, our staff, so we definitely need to stop that. Commissioner Patterson?
Yes, you know, I see at the end here, it talks about a positive school climate. Isn't there something as far as legislative priorities we can add in here that maybe at a city level, county level, state level, that they can help us with school safety or support us with school safety with funding and whatever we need to help sustain us in that area of fiscal responsibility?
So, we always could use more funding for safety, for education. That's what this is about. That's when push comes to shove, when you start talking about advocacy and all of that, it's about we need more funding. They say money ain't everything, but it is a lot. It means a lot. It needs more staff in the classroom. That reduces class size. You don't have to reduce the number of students in there. Add another adult in there. That makes it's the same thing, and you get the much better results. So yeah, I support that. Requesting for more funding. That's part of that. Anyone else?
Do you need a motion to
Sure.
advance it to the full board prior to the legislative breakfast? If so, make that motion.
So moved?
Well, let's see where he's going with it before.
So, let me just say that the Big Five Legislative Conference in person is February 27th and March 3rd. March 3rd, they're going to Albany. But I'll take that motion.
Does it just require so moved or a second at that point?
Motion, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 So, we're gonna go to resolution consideration. We have one resolution. That's Resolution 2022-2023, Resolution 360, right?
Yes. So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I think you have a second one, don't you?
361.
Oh, we have a walk-on resolution now, okay. I'm looking at the wrong thing here.
Budget 361.
Yeah, let me go back
It's
up here.
actually not a long conversation because we still got to.
Walk-on resolution.
Mr. Chair?
So we have a motion to waive the requirements of the 48-hour submission rule required in the board bylaws for walk-ons.
So moved.
Mr. Chair, the waiver is embedded in the resolution itself, which is a little weird, but we can work with that without a separate motion.
Oh, that's new.
I know, it's a little weird because it means you don't have a chance to decide whether to waive it separate from the resolution itself.
So-
But
361.
I'll move this resolution 361.
Okay, so.
Second.
Yeah.
I must not be logged in.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Didn't log in.
Do we have to call for discussion first?
You recorded it.
Thought it was logged in.
So the board meeting poll.
So just for clarification, I heard that the board was moving resolution 361, so
Yeah.
that's what was moved, seconded, and voted on.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Mr. Chair, if I might comment, I would just suggest that in the future, resolutions don't have that language embedded into it, because it doesn't give us an opportunity to have that discussion about whether waiving the rules would be appropriate for the circumstances. I mean, we did it this time, the language is there, but I would think in the future, we would want that to be a standalone resolution, a vote to waive, whether to waive the bylaws or not.
I think the language in the resolution itself says to the extent applicable, it doesn't specifically reference the 48 hours. So it's likely pointing to that, but in the event that there was some other prohibition as well. So I think it was just covered because it is a walk-on to cover anything that might have been kind of prohibited in this regard. So, but I think that point is well taken.
Okay. Commissioner LeBron,
Yes.
could you speak on the board budget priorities?
Yes, and I'm also in the middle of a small crisis, so I just want to put that out there. So my daughter may be stopping by. So just a couple of things on the board budget priorities. Our board clerk had sent out just a compilation, if you will, of feedback from smaller meetings and other feedback that board members have given. We've kind of had one session already to discuss it. There's only one that has 4 or more support, and that is a pay equity study to look at pay equity across the district and ensuring that all of our employees are being paid equitably, and that also means that if they started 20 years ago, that they're not similar wages to someone that started last week, which is what we mean by pay equity, and there is a pay inequity across the district. So that's the only one right now that has the priorities, from budget priorities that has 4 or more. But I just want to remind folks that out of all of the recommendations, that I know that we sort of, at least in my experience in these last 5 years, tend to look at this as like, what are we going to prioritize this year versus what needs to be prioritized this year, and then next year, and then the year after, and how they kind of build upon one another. So that is the approach that I want us to take this year, but we also have had some conversations around long-term fiscal planning and training. So that also has to be scheduled. So I say that to say, for a follow-up, I will probably have to do it in small groups with folks to prioritize it and then come back and just present it because time is running out. And we don't have time to do another full-on budget session. But so there's some work that's going to have to happen outside of the meeting here and then present that publicly. We also wanted to incorporate feedback from the administration. And I do think based on that feedback and potentially changing the format so that we're thinking short-term and long-term around budget priorities, that that we then look at that lens from that, the list from that lens, and then sort of, well, I'll probably ask you all to do is prioritize which year 1, 2, and 3, you think the priorities that have already bubbled up onto this master list should go. And I'm hoping that that then brings us closer to at least 3 that we can focus on this year. Again, not to take away any of the priorities that all of you have already submitted, but to kind of frame it in the appropriate year that we could potentially have it as a focal point for a budget. Does that make sense before I go on? Okay. So I am going to, please expect a few emails from Mahima and I as we move forward to figure out when we can schedule these. And I'm going to, for full disclosure, I start school tomorrow. I don't know schedule-wise what I'm going to be looking like. So I say that to say I will, if I'm not able to be there, I will either ask President Elliott to step in to help facilitate, and Dr. Jallo and Rahima to also be a part of the conversations. And we can record them so that I can watch them later And I just have to say that because that's my system. Like anytime I miss a meeting, I always go back and watch it on YouTube. And if there are any questions, I usually reach out to the administration. So I hope to do this within the next week or two. Again, time has kind of run out. And so there'll be some homework, if you will, and then a meeting so that we can go over the results in small groups and then have one board priorities, budget priorities for year 1, 2, and 3 as we move forward. That's it for me. I'll turn the mic back over unless anyone has any questions.
Anyone has any questions for Vice President LeBron before we move on? Okay.
All right, thank you.
So let's take a few minutes to complete the online poll.
Yeah. Commissioner Adams, if you want to adjourn the meeting, we can give folks a minute for a bathroom break, yeah, a comfort break. Motion to adjourn.
Second? I'll second. All those in favor?
All those in favor, aye. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Good evening. This is the Policy Committee of the Whole, Tuesday, January 10th. If you go on board docs, you'll notice that the meeting says we'll begin at 5:30, which would have been a neat trick because we had our Community and Intergovernmental Relations Committee at 5:30. But you'll see when you open the agenda that our expectation was that we would start at 7. And after a brief comfort intermission, we're ready to start our Policy Committee of the Whole. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda for tonight?
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Malloy, second by President Elliott. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. There are 5 of us. Any nays? No nays. Motion carries. There are no speakers tonight for the Policy Committee. On our standing agenda items, we do have minutes for December 6th meeting. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Don't know where that started. I'll say Commissioner Elliott moved it, Commissioner Malloy seconded it. Discussion? Did anyone find any typos or other errors? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Charisma, we're not doing electronic voting, are we? Because I've raced on ahead.
No, you're fine. It's something happening technically anyway, but when we get to the policies, we can, if you want, we can start doing it.
Okay. Very good, thank you. The next agenda item is 3B, a review of NYSBA policy recommendations. General Counsel Neil, thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Powell. There are some policy updates and recommendations this month by NYSBA. There are 4 in total. I will go through them briefly. The first is a recommended update to the use of to their policy number 4321.12, the use of timeout rooms, physical restraints, and aversives. This is a required policy. The district does have a version of this policy under policy 8200. The changes that they are recommending are really something that we've been aware of for some time, and we are currently in the process of amending our policy to satisfy this requirement. It's the change related to same-day notification to parents. The second policy is policy 6830, expense reimbursement. This is not a required policy. We are in the process of looking at this policy. In summary, this is a policy related to school district employees, official and members of the Board of Education, and how they are reimbursed for reasonable and actual and necessary out-of-pocket expenses which are legally authorized while traveling for school-related activities. Again, my recollection is that this is currently under review at the subcommittee level. The next policy update relates to homebound instruction. That's policy number 4327. Homebound instruction is a service provided to students who are unable to participate in their usual educational setting at home or in a hospital or other institution for the treatment of children due to temporary or chronic illness or injury for physical, mental, or emotional reasons. The changes to this really relate to specifying and differentiating homebound instruction versus being out of school for disciplinary reasons. This policy is currently under review, so we're currently are in the process of making recommended changes and taking a look at this at the committee level. So their recommended changes, I think we have an opportunity to incorporate. And finally, the whistleblower policy, policy 9645, which is disclosure of wrongful conduct, or the whistleblower policy, which they're informing us that it no longer requires public employees to notify their employers of alleged wrongdoing before bringing their concerns to a governmental entity. And so historically, the policy kind of required internal reporting before going to an external entity to provide certain types of protections. This is, and we're in the process of actually, this policy is under review, and those recommendations have been passed on to the necessary parties for input.
Sorry, thank you. Are there any questions for Adrian on these 4 NYSBA recommended policies? Essentially, we have all of them in our pipeline for review as we speak. No questions? Next item on the agenda is the Code of Conduct Committee. Just to refresh you all, the list of participants on the committee are provided for you, but we do not have an update at this time. Okay. Under new business, item 4A, I'm going to turn the floor over to Charisma to talk to us about our roadmap for the 8,000 series policies.
Thank you, Commissioner Powell. So the policy subcommittee reviewed support services, which is the 8,000 series. As a reminder, this is the policy roadmap. The policies went through subcommittee and then was sent to executive cabinet. And then it came back to subcommittee, and now it's in front of you all today. These individuals are who contributed to these policies when they were being reviewed. And so the standard operating procedures, there were biweekly subcommittee meetings, and then final recommendations were forwarded to the policy committee for tonight in alliance with policy 2410. So for the first policy, health and safety 8100, there were no significant changes. NYSBA has recommended that the policy is okay. The next policy, safe schools 8135, no significant changes. NYSBA has recommended that this policy seems to have all the key elements, but as it is such a lengthy document, the board is encouraged to separate it into separate documents, which at this time the policy subcommittee does not recommend doing. The next policy is cell phone policy 8332. Revisions to section 8332.20, authorized use of cell phones, is the significant change here, and NYSBA has recommended that this policy was updated. Video cameras on school buses, policy 8414.4. There are no significant changes, and NYSBA has recommended that the policy is okay. The next policy, charging school meals and prohibition against shaming, is a new policy. And so is recommended, the policy reflects the district's practices versus the NYSBA sample. And as I stated, the policy is new. Medicaid compliance for health-related services. There were revisions under Section 4, compliance. It is recommended that the policy number stays as is. And this is based on NYSBA recommended to move in the policy number to 6685, which is our finance policies. And then the last policy, recycling program, policy 8910. No significant changes. E-waste was added as an example for number 4, and NYSBA has stated that the policy is okay. Currently in this series, we still have policies, de-escalation of crisis situations, policy 8200, and transportation of students and others, policy 8400, are both still under review. And when ready, they will be presented. Next steps, the goal is for these policies to be forwarded out of the policy committee tonight, to be sent to our board business meeting, to follow policy 24, 10, which would mean that by our March business meeting, you all will have the opportunity to vote if the policies are amended. And that is all I have, Commissioner Powell.
Thank you, Charisma. Snazzy new slide there, the questions. Just when we thought that we just rolled over these presentations from one meeting to the other. So we will be going through each one of these individually, so, but are there any questions overall about our process? Okay, well then let's launch right into the first of the policies in the stack, 8100. Charisma, will you be able to pull up the track changes version of each?
Yes, I can do that.
Oops. And I made the mistake of pulling up the clean copy, so hold on a second. Okay, well, this isn't a really great example. It basically is just showing you some formatting changes and the change of gender-neutral pronouns, which we have all agreed to do. Essentially, it's the same policy. Any questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion to advance policy 8100 to the full board. Motion. I have a motion.
Second.
I have a second from Commissioner Adams. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. The ayes have it, 5-2, 5-0.
And I have opened the online voting.
Ah, okay. Thank you. The next policy, did you get answers? Okay, let me just pause there.
Still waiting for one more commissioner. So you're all set, 6-0.
Oh, that's right. You only have one missing. Okay. The next policy is 8135. Again, when you look at the track changes, you'll see that they're formatting. We don't even have any pronouns to worry about in this one. Any questions? I'll entertain a motion to move this out of out of policy committee into the full board.
Motion.
Second.
That came from Commissioner Malloy, seconded by Commissioner Adams. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Online voting is now open. Still waiting on one more commissioner.
I think that's me.
The motion passes 6-0.
Thank you, Charisma. The next policy is 8332. And we can see in the track changes that under the authorized use of cell phones, this refers directly to what our general counsel described to us. Authorized use of cell phones is the new item 1. I'll entertain a motion to advance this to the full board.
Second.
A motion by Commissioner Patterson, second by Commissioner Malloy. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Online voting is now open. Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you, Charisma. The next policy is policy 8414.4, video cameras on school buses. This is essentially unchanged. Do I have a motion to advance to the full board?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Elliott, second by Commissioner Malloy. Discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Online voting is now open. Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. Next one is policy 8505. As our general counsel indicated, this is a new policy in our manual, and it is a required policy. And there's a lot of law backing it up, but as you see, the policy itself is very brief. Do I have a motion to advance this to the full board?
So moved.
Was that Commissioner Malloy?
Yes.
And second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Adams. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Online voting is now open. Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. Next policy up for discussion is policy 8600. You'll note that this was one of the policies that General Counsel just read a summary of, and that the NYSBA was recommending that it be moved to the finance section of the book. At this point, we're not recommending that, essentially because the responsibility for complying with it happens, in the schools, in the support services area. So certainly this would be the time to voice any concerns about that. Do I have a motion to advance this to the full board?
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Malloy,
Second.
second by Commissioner Adams.
One second, can you clarify which policy number you're referring to?
It's presented to us as 8600, as opposed to the Finance Committee, as opposed to the NYSBA recommended number within the Finance section. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Oops. Did anyone else want to discuss? Okay.
Online voting is now open. Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. The last one in this set is policy 8910, the recycling program. And again, this, just as legal counsel outlined, does include references to e-waste. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Malloy, second by Commissioner Adams. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Online voting is now open. Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. The next portion of our agenda is on new business I, policy updates for which I'm seeking some guidance from my colleagues. There are two policies that NYSBA is recommending but are not required. If you look in section 4I, you'll see that they are attached as PDFs. The first one I'd like to discuss briefly is the school board access to information and reports. Now, the thing about this is that we do have protocols in place, and protocols are more adaptable than a policy. We can change them, on a case-by-case basis. Whereas once we've adopted it as a policy, we're kind of locked in. So I'd like to hear from especially those who have asked for information from the administration, whether you feel that there's a need for us to formalize our current protocols, or whether we're happy with the way things are being done now. Commissioner Patterson.
Yeah, in my review of this, the only point that I'd like to make, or I don't really think it's an issue, but if a board member, my thought is, I may have a reason for wanting certain statistical data that another board member may not be totally interested in at all. And that board member not having an interest, would see no needs or a reason for me, therefore would not vote, for another board member to acquire that information.
So what you're describing is essentially obstructionism. So the question is, and currently, what the policy that NYSBA is recommending is in fact what our protocols are. And when the board is working well, then there's really two forces at play. One is a spirit of collegiality. Are we willing to support a board member who has a question by voting, to make that information available to all, and weighing that against the cost of time and resources to acquire that. And when there's a good faith working relationship on the board, that tends to find its balance, right? And because it is the protocol we currently operate under, the question is, does having the policy improve your position? Does having the policy really change anything about whether you would or wouldn't get the information you're looking for?
I think either way, if this information is accessible to the public, it's foilable. Mm-hmm. So even though I see no need for the other board members to have to vote on statistical data, for example, that you might need to make an educated decision relative to something you might be working on, or to prove a point. So that's where I am with that.
Yeah, I totally get it.
If it's foilable, you're going to receive it anyway.
By foiling it.
By foiling it. It's just that it's easier to be able to just say, hey, this is what I need.
Right.
And for the administration to provide you with that.
Mm-hmm. Understood. Commissioner Adams, did you have something to add?
Yeah, that's kind of like exactly the opposite of what I had learned at this PD that I went to in Orlando, is because it sounded like we have to not be sending folks down the rabbit hole, because there's so much comes with these meetings being really long. A lot comes with that: stress, impatience, intolerance. So we have to, I think as a board, we need to try to avoid those. And it ain't, because it rolls over. It isn't something that just happens up here on this board. Some of the things that we say, if I say something about operations, Mike needs to go and respond to whatever I'm saying. And if I say something about some certain policies, Dr. Jallo got to go digging and looking. People have to respond to everything we say. So sometimes we have to be conscious that we don't send folks down a hole and cause the climate of the board to just be not in the right space. And I'm not saying people can't question nothing or have their own opinion. You can do that, but we have to keep stuff within control we put a lot of time in on this board. I do, all right, because I put a whole lot of time, and I ain't sitting up here that I have to study and say to myself, what did Commissioner Malloy just say, or where did Commissioner LeBron get this from? And so I have to end up doing a lot of unnecessary research. So I just say that we need to be careful about sending folks down rabbit holes. That's it. Be clear.
Commissioner Malloy?
Yeah, I think I understand the concern that Commissioner Patterson has expressed, and I've learned in the 3 years that I've been on the board that when we ask certain questions or ask for certain information, that it creates a lot more work for not only our board staff, but also for the people who make up central office, and it can take hours and hours of their time. I don't think I fully appreciated that until just this past year. So I think that's the essence of that school board access in this policy. So I think it makes sense to follow it and assume good intentions. Thanks.
Commissioner Elliott, your mic is hot. Do you have a question or anything to contribute? Okay. Okay, well, having heard the discussion, we'll take it up at the subcommittee and just knock it around a little bit more. And if the consensus is a policy is a good idea, you'll see it back here, okay? Or if anyone really wants it to be a policy, rather than just a protocol that we've all accepted as a norm, please let me know that too. Okay? All right, the next policy within this subset is policy 2342, agenda prep and dissemination. This falls in the exact same category. We have protocols and practice that accomplish what this policy that NYSBA is recommending calls for. And I'm just not convinced that codifying it into policy language is particularly necessary for us. But I can be persuaded to go down that path if you like. Any comments about this policy? No comments? I'll just ask that if a rationale comes to you tonight, tomorrow, next week, that this might be a useful policy to have, please reach out to me so that we can, put administration to the task of translating this proposal into a policy. Yes, Commissioner Malloy.
Just a quick question as I read this. When we say board meeting, are we referring to the business meetings then?
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Commissioner Adams, your mic?
Nah, I'm good. Thanks, though.
You're good? Okay. All right. Well, that completes item 4I. The next item I wanted to bring to the committee is that I had a chance to review the survey questions for our policy committee for all of last year. You'll note that the number of responses varies from meeting to meeting. And the first 6 meetings of the year were with the same questions that are asked of all committees and at all business meetings. And so what I do is I put them in a bar graph form so that I could look for, those areas that were not green. Green being a yes answer, an affirmative answer in most cases, but in the case of were there violations of the bylaws, the green column would be a no answer. And I do see that the rare occasions that there are adverse answers or reddish orange, you'll notice focus on the very first question, did we start on time?
No.
And of course, there are actually times when that matters because, in the instance where one committee meeting follows another like this, and we'll see that more clearly in the next set of slides, it's, we're kind of at the mercy of whoever precedes us, right? The only red I see generally is in the area of how we treat our colleagues. Did we follow our code of conduct, and did we heed our bylaws? And there are low instance, ones and twos at best, but that's somewhat mitigated by the fact that we don't have 100% response. So I think the message I'm trying to convey here is, if you're unhappy and you don't register it in a survey, there's no way for anyone to know that and to react to it. If we go down to the 4th page, the latter 4 meetings of last year, I changed the questions to be more specific to the policy committee. Now, the first question, of course, is the same, but we have a new option for a response, and that is where the meeting is not the first meeting, the answer should be not applicable. And you'll see on November and December, you do see some blue, where in both cases our meeting was the second in the queue. The question, the change of the question for our viewing audience is, the second question is exactly the same. Did you receive materials sufficient to prepare you for the meeting? And the same for number 3, were the materials sufficient, but I framed it specifically to form an opinion about the policy proposals. Question number 4 was reframed to be essentially a self-evaluation. Do you feel you've expressed your positions professionally and in accordance with the code of conduct? And it's actually really interesting that a self-evaluation would actually produce a no answer. And I hope that means that that we as board members are actually seeking self-improvement. The 5th question, do you feel your colleagues express their positions professionally and in accordance with the code of conduct? This question didn't have a corollary in the first set of questions, and So this is our opportunity to essentially evaluate our peers. The sixth, do you feel the chair gave equal opportunity to express their concerns? I actually created 3 questions for evaluating the chair. It's not because it's all about me, but because there are different ways that the chair can influence the meeting. One is by providing equal opportunity for everyone to express their opinion. The second is by being even-handed and fair in applying the bylaws and maintaining order. And the third is essentially, and this is question 9, was the chair effective in actually bringing the question to a vote, allowing all sides to be heard and bringing it to a vote? I did skip a question, no, I guess I did all right. Okay, and then finally, did the meeting bring the board closer to fulfilling the obligation of the policy committee to review its manual? This is an objectively verifiable, like how many policies did we move through? And so, Charisma, if you zoom out so that you can see the whole set of questions from page 4 down, you can see very clearly that October was a problem month. And we know what that meeting was like. The question is whether in evaluating the meeting, we were doing justice to the whole breadth of the meeting, or did we respond negatively to every question because it was a negative meeting? And there's kind of evidence of both in this. So I guess all I would ask is that we treat each question separately and on its own merit, because some are self-evaluative, others evaluate the whole, and others evaluate only the chair. And the last thing I want to say about the evaluation, aside from the fact that I would really like everyone to complete the survey each and every time, because it does matter, I do pay attention, but also encourage the chairs of other committees to tailor the survey to their committee work. This is how I chose to do it, and I'm sure that other committees, could fine-tune their surveys to great benefit as well. Any questions or comments about that?
I do.
Yes.
So if other committees do tailor the questions to their committee, how would you suggest they go about doing that? Is there a core set of questions that are really essential that we include each time? It's not just the addition of additional questions, or can they omit questions if they feel they really aren't relevant or applicable?
All of the above.
Okay.
I've kind of deleted a question and reframed several others. And in the last version, I actually added 2 open-ended questions, what was most effective and what was least effective. I didn't put that in here because I kind of ran out of time, but it didn't lend itself as well to graphics. And they provide great insight as well.
Yeah, and I only ask because if we're looking at the long-term tracking of this information, if we have some consistency between committees so that there are similar questions being asked, we can gauge that at the same time adding our own as well.
And if other committee chairs would like to collaborate, I'm happy to change some of my questions so,
Just to streamline, or?
So that they're in line with what other committees are doing, okay? So, All right, so that was just being presented as an FYI. We do have, I believe, we're on to item 5 on the agenda. We do have three items under unfinished business. The first being merging policy 300 which is the NYSBA recommended policy, with our policy 2000. We scroll through the slides. We've finished slide 2, which is essentially our bullet item 3 2 months ago. And then we discussed on the next page, page 3, Charisma, we discussed our policy 2000's point number 5, and came up with the language that you see in the third column. Evaluate progress toward achievement of district long and short-term goals, and ensure board policies and resources effectively support the district vision. If anyone finds fault with that, please let me know. The next bullet would then be page 4. Our bullet 2 reads, identify the educational and technical needs of the community and industry to transform such needs into programs aimed at stimulating students and preparing them for future careers. The NYSBA policy's equivalent reads, request regular reports on student progress and needs based on a variety of assessments to evaluate the quality and equity of education in the district, including instruction, services, and facilities. So I'm looking for guidance on, do we want to keep our language exactly as it is? Are there parts of the NYSBA recommended version that we like and want to incorporate? I see Commissioner Patterson.
Yes, I think it's always important to request some type of data, statistical data on anything that we do when we have the opportunity to. So yes, requesting regular reports on student progress and needs. That way we're not caught off base with something that should be in or on our radar. It's brought to our attention much sooner because we should see that data or that statistical reporting.
Mm-hmm. So our bullet point really talks about identifying, and it doesn't talk about assessing. And so your point is more about the, finding a way to get the assessment into our language. Am I hearing you right?
You said it a lot better than I could have.
Okay. I like that the NYSBA version includes the use of the phrase equity of education. That's something that's not in our bullet point. So, anybody else? Let me take that in 2 parts. Do we think as a body that assessment should be part of this bullet?
Was that
Yes.
one of the NYSBA recommendations?
The language in the NYSBA version, column 2, uses the phrase assessment,
Okay.
whereas we do not.
I wouldn't be opposed to it. I'm trying to think why don't we have a language like that in our policy?
Right. And it might be a failing of breaking them up into separate bullet points, but I don't see anything in the other bullet points that speaks to assessment either. So I think it was just that when we were crafting our language, we were doing it, you know, inside our bubble without using anybody else's template, and it just got away from us.
I would support that.
Support the inclusion of assessment?
Yes.
Others? I think I have heard from two folks on that point. Yes? Did I hear something from you, Commissioner Braun? You didn't weigh in? You didn't weigh in at all? Okay. Commissioner Elliott? No opinion? Okay.
No.
All right, so I guess, well, if I throw my vote into it, assessment should go in. There's 4 votes for that. How about the phrase equity? Do we want to see the evaluation? Do we want the whole phrase, evaluate the equality and equity? Are we comfortable with lifting that entire phrase and appending it to ours?
I'm fine with that.
And Charisma's going to actually type away to capture this. Keep in mind that when we did our work developing this language, it was done over many, many minutes and hours in retreat, so I don't intend to go beyond this one bullet tonight. We'll take up the next one next month. Charisma, we're basically going to add the entire phrase, and I think it can be appended right to the end of our first sentence. For future careers, comma, and regularly assess and evaluate the quality and equity of education in the district. You are so good. You're like all over that. Does anyone have?
Was it quality or equality?
Quality and equity.
And equity. Okay, quality and equity.
Is that what she typed? Yes, that's what she
yeah.
typed. Okay. And does anyone have any trouble with that language? We will be seeing it again as we review. So if as you review this PowerPoint in your copious spare time and you decide that there's something different you want to see, please bring it to the next meeting, okay? Thank you so much, Charisma, for capturing that. Okay, that's everything under 5A. That takes us to unfinished business, 5B, the video conferencing. We had discussion about it last month. Some of the fine points that we discussed were integrated into the policy language in front of you, the track changes version. And we did our best to have the policy reflect the, I don't know if we didn't have perfect consensus, but certainly the will of the majority. And if that's acceptable, I will accept a motion to advance this policy 2325 to the full board. I have a motion from Commissioner Patterson.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Adams. Discussion?
I have, Commissioner Powell, I apologize, I have one, as I look at the exact language, in the first paragraph, the first sentence, at the end says an appropriate public notice has been given as outlined in policy. I think that should say law and policy, because there are some notice requirements under the open meetings law. So I think that is the only, and that's my fault that that's not included. There was the final version that I discussed with board staff. I may have forgotten to forward that, but that last sentence should say law and policy.
Okay, the end of the very first sentence.
Yeah.
Is that acceptable to everyone here? If I could have a motion to amend then to include law and policy?
I'll motion.
Okay.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner LeBron, second by Commissioner Adams. All in favor of the amendment? Aye. We don't have that pre-staged, so we're just going to add the notes to that. There won't be any online voting for that. Any other observations? Thank you for the timeliness of that input. Appreciate it. Commissioner LeBron?
Yeah, I just, two things. One, the location open to the public, that's always been my understanding, but I do know that there was an occasion where there was going to be a meeting and we were told we didn't have to disclose to the public where we were at if the quorum was here in person. I just wanted to get clarification around that, especially if quorum is here. And then the other piece is I don't personally want to use extraordinary circumstances. There are just circumstances that occur for all of us that have, one, forced us to have to go on Zoom because something happened and we needed to either be home with a sick child or whatever the case may be. And I don't know, I just think in 2023, post-COVID, video conferencing is very much so a part of government and non-for-profits and businesses and how they conduct business. I do understand that the law says quorum has to be physically here in person, so I just want to put that out there. But I think there should just be grace if people have to video conference as long as there's quorum here and it doesn't disrupt us from being able to actually meet. I don't personally, this is just me, I don't personally care why any of my colleagues have to Zoom. If that's your business, obviously if you can be here, you'll be here, but I just want to put that out there.
So let's take it in two parts. The first part is about if their location is open to the public in the opening sentence in the policy. Adrian, did you have something to observe there?
Right, so your location, that is if it's a full video conferencing, right? So for example, if there was not a quorum present in the same location, then the location is actually open to the public. But if there are 4 board members here, then the 3 who are remote, their locations do not have to be open to the public. So the requirement is really for if we're talking a fully remote circumstance where there is not a state of emergency, via the state or a local state of emergency in play. So I think that answers the first question. The second question related to the extraordinary circumstances, unfortunately, Commissioner, that is required per the statute. That is in the open meetings law, and the exact language is members of the public body shall be physically present at such meetings unless such members are unable to be physically present at any such meeting location due to extraordinary circumstances. And it gives some examples, including disability, illness, caregiving responsibility, or any other significant or unexpected factor or event which precludes a member's physical attendance at such a meeting. So it does give enough leeway for some definition for varying interpretations in there. But that language at extraordinary circumstances is in the statute and in the guidance material. It is reiterated. I think the message that the state legislatures are trying to get across is really you should be present at meetings unless there is a very, very good reason for you not to be. So it just can't be on a whim or a minor issue.
Please.
So that makes sense, and I'm glad that it's in the statute, because we can always use the statute to point to for the definition. My, I guess, concern was that we're just throwing the word there. I didn't realize it was tied back to the law, so I'm good with that. Because then we can reference the law that gives way for illness and caregiving and so forth. Thanks.
I do have a question, Adrian, about where does, in this policy, does the Section 2 governing extraordinary circumstances end, and are just general administration of this policy begin? Is that really the top of page 2? Because it uses the phrase extraordinary circumstances, but I think in this instance, it's referring to the individual board members' extraordinary circumstances, not the language of the law of, a disaster. Do we need like a section break there to make it more clear?
There is, under section 2, the third paragraph, it does talk about, it says the in-person quorum requirement will not apply in the event of a declared state of disaster, emergency, or local state emergency if the district determines that such emergency would affect or impair the district's ability to hold an in-person meeting.
So what you're saying is this whole section 2, from section 2 header to the end is referring to extraordinary circumstances of the individual, except for that one paragraph.
Right.
And so that is and that's why it blends naturally. Okay,
Right.
I understand. Any other, I hear some sidebar, any other? Okay. Any other comments about this policy? None whatsoever. We had a motion and approval of an amendment to add law and in front of policy. If there's no further discussion, a call for a vote to advance this policy to the full board.
So moved.
Second.
Oh, I think we had the motion before we did the amendment, so I'm just calling for the vote itself. Okay?
Aye.
Aye?
Aye.
Charisma, are you tracking that manually or?
Yes.
Okay, all right. In that case, just to be perfectly clear, any nays? No nays? Do you want to cast your vote for the video conferencing?
What's the vote so far?
Well, so far it's 6, all 6 in favor so far.
Yep.
You're going to add your vote, your yes vote?
Please.
Okay. Did you catch that, Commissioner? Okay. So we are unanimous on this. Thank you so much. That takes us through the entire agenda. I am going to have, well, first let me say it's time to take the poll or the survey. And while we're doing that, I need to announce that the board will recess in executive session to discuss matters leading to the appointment of specific individual and/or discuss matters of concern with the general counsel.
So moved.
Well, let's get through the survey and then.
Commissioner Powell, I will say I do like these questions.
I'm sorry, say again?
The questions, that they're different, and I appreciate that.
Okay. If we're finished completing the survey, I will entertain a motion to recess into executive session.
Motion.
I have a motion from Commissioner Patterson,
Second.
seconded by Commissioner Malloy.
It was
All in
Adams.
favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, everyone, for your attention. I think we did this in under an hour, so, and I certainly appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Did you set a record?